little bit of a clickbaity title, but the insights I'm going to share today are literally mind-blowing, because the techniques I'm describing in this platform are used by TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all the others to capture your brain and change how you think. In short, mind control of any population that consumes and engages with new media on any of these platforms. It's not a conspiracy or anything, just the product of power, politics, and commerce. So it's important to understand the details of some of this mind control works, because not only tyrants, but well-meaning people with good intentions and not so good intentions or profit motive use it to change public opinion to suit themselves. So with centralized big media, it was easy to see what these strategies are. You just watch what's being broadcast, but with social media, it's a lot more subtle and personal. So I want to dig a little deeper and just see what's going on. So all these social media platforms now use deep learning, and that's known as artificial intelligence or AI, which we've all heard of, to optimize the platform so it feeds you content that you engage with. So what people love about TikTok, for example, is the For You algorithm, which is the deep learning model it builds about your behavior to give you content that you increasingly like and engage with. Watching it for longer, smashing the like button, sharing it with friends, and so on. So YouTube has the same model for its recommendations as does Instagram and Facebook. And the success of these new media platforms is down to how efficient their AI is in maximizing engagement, where engagement means the capture of your valuable and irreplaceable attention and time. So whenever a service is free, remind yourself that it is you that is the product, specifically your time, attention, and money. Now, the most engaging content for which our longer term focus remains fixated on, I'm summarizing the science, is usually about things that we argue about and stuff that terrifies us and that happens to other people. We enjoy watching skits and funny things, watching attractive people show themselves off and do random shit, and anything out of the ordinary, from giant landslides, rocket launches, animals, cats and dogs doing things that are very funny. But conflict and fear are what really glue our eyes to the screen and engage that strategic part of our mind, the long-term way that we see the world, and adjust our behavior to fit into it. But how does a platform optimize to capture our attention in the most efficient way? Well, if it uses a bunch of deep learning techniques like neural networks, well, not only are neural networks a lot more powerful a technique than any other statistical method, but they can also be trained down to a much more individual and personal level. So our brain is a biological neural network, and we use it to learn to do new things in life. Artificial neural networks are designed to mimic how our brain works, and they can actually learn things too. And they were discovered, unsurprisingly, by looking at how collections of interconnected neurons, like the ones in our brain, learn. Some of this is complicated. I don't want to get too bogged down in the detail, and it's not necessary, but just so you know the similarity between some of these neural networks and our own brains. When I was studying some deep learning algorithms, that's the convolutional neural network and recurrent neural network, I was particularly struck by how the lowest level filters in successfully trained convolutional neural networks, or CNNs as they're known, were these Gabor functions. Now they're named after Dennis Gabor. He's the inventor of the hologram, a Nobel Prize winner, smart guy. And it's a Gaussian kernel function that's modulated by a sinusoidal plane wave. And I know it sounds gibberish, but it is in fact found to be the simplest image you can shine onto your retina and induce a single neuron in your brain to fire. That's in your visual cortex. So the main point is that biological experiments with some very unfortunate rabbits confirm this intimate link to the way our own brain trains itself to recognize patterns over time. And social media companies use a combination of neural networks like CNNs, RNNs, but also deep learning analysis of the actual content being shared to get a detailed view of context. In order to train neural networks to optimize for this particular outcome, including the ones that social media networks will use, although you might display rich media to somebody, might be like a video or a picture or some text, but all you need coming back to train your neural network is a very simple signal, like a click, or a like will be enough just to measure how long you dwell on that video is enough, or if you scroll back to watch it again. All these little signals are data fingerprints, and once you've got a few hundred data points, they can be used to uniquely identify what kind of person you are. Now, if you comment on a post, this is very rich. You're giving a lot of semantic information. So sharing the content with someone else on the network that has a certain profile. But even if you're just browsing with your thumb, moving on the screen, that's enough for the algorithm to train itself and start optimizing the content it feeds you, so that over time, you'll give it increasing amounts of attention until it gets to the point where you are doom scrolling and addicted and just doing that all day. So this is where things get interesting, because not only does the algorithm know your behavior and what to give you to keep you addicted, but it's trained across millions, or in the case of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, billions of people and tens of trillions of these data points that profiles you in an extremely detailed way. And advertisers of all sorts will pay to show a specific profile of users their content, because by those users repeatedly viewing their content, they can convince people to buy their products, services, or even change, strengthen, or weaken the opinions held by users on certain matters, like cultural matters. There are similarities between people that are totally invisible to us using our limited brains, but those similarities are perfectly visible to the incredibly well-trained networks on these platforms. So for example, the way you move your thumb across the screen a few times when browsing, well, do you know it's possible to tell what gender you are? The network doesn't even need to ask you that question. They will get your location and age, they'll ask for that. Then after you watch a few hundred videos, which you can easily do in a single sitting, it actually captures enough information to map your ethnicity, political views, your sense of humor, cultural affiliation, opinions with segments of other people that will share your browsing behavior. And it does so with frighteningly high accuracy. So once you're at this point of addiction, you've been profiled, right? It maintains this little neural network model of you, a little brain in the cloud, right? And it uses that to start to select and display content to you that it knows other people of your profile already share and engage with. It knows you'll likely share and engage with it too for that reason. So if it gets this right, the content can proliferate geometrically. It means that you share it with 5 people, those 5 share it with another 5, and those with another 5. Well, that's already 255 people seeing your content. The last 225 people, well, if they share it with another 5, that's 1,480 extra people, just 4 shares in, starting with you sharing it with just 5 friends. Now, let's say a political party or an advertiser wishes to instill a certain idea or strengthen an opinion. This idea may not have existed in your head to begin with, or you might not have cared too much about it, but the way propaganda, in fact all advertising and marketing works, is that repeated exposure to an idea makes a good proportion of humans exposed to it to believe that idea without reason or logic being involved. It's called the illusory truth effect, or the mere exposure effect, because contrary to what we think, how we rationally come to conclusions and form opinions or believe things, just repeated exposure to the point that we're familiar with an idea makes many of us believe it. Most of us believe it. And if those ideas are coming from or being shared with us by our friends, family, and colleagues, then this is social proof, and it serves to strengthen those beliefs, those new beliefs, regardless of whether they're true or not. The other thing people might not know why you shared a bit of content. You might have found something funny, but someone else finds it political. They don't ask you why you shared it. The social network will just experiment with content of a certain kind that an advertiser's paid to proliferate, and it optimizes for the engagement and sharing of that content, since that's how it makes money. It can optimize for anything at all, for a particular sentiment to emerge in a comment section, a polarization between 2 political, religious, or cultural groups, anything. In fact, the more polarizing, the better, since online brawling and trolling tends to lead to the most eyeballs for a social network. If you think about it, social media engagement optimization using deep learning is largely responsible for this massive political culture war that you've got in North America and actually around the world, many Western countries. If you think this is far-fetched, in 2016, the paymasters for the Brexit campaign in the UK proliferated what is now known to be a barrage of misinformation in order to change public opinion on the EU referendum. The result being the exit of the UK from the European Union. They did this using way more rudimentary techniques, and you can Google Cambridge Analytica Brexit if you want to find out how they did it. Of course, people had no idea at the time, but once it was done and dusted, it became too late for them to change their minds. That is how powerful social media networks are. Consider that the social network media optimization has driven the outcome of the US election since 2008, and indeed most elections around the world are now driven by content and strategies that are implemented across all the main platforms. How do you respond to this and defend your mind against the takeover? Well, start developing what's called mental hygiene. That means stand back, select what you're going to watch as well carefully, and then stand back and look at the media you consume and engage with. Try doing this, scrolling through your social media as if you're watching yourself watching it. What do you notice? Can you spot the media that you consume that's designed to gain control over your mind by trying to change or polarize your opinions and desires? What media would you choose? consciously? And more importantly, what would you choose not to watch? Like, try and select what you let into your mind much more carefully, because if you're not careful, you can inadvertently give away your conscious intention, your agency, your wisdom to a deep learning algorithm that's trained to achieve outcomes that they're not designed to help you live a better life, but to entrap you, control your mind and your behavior. I believe in you and I love you all. Let me know what you think in the comments, and please suggest other topics you'd like me to discuss.